What's up, guys? Today we got the iPhone 10 versus the Samsung Galaxy S10 here. Which is the better older flagship to purchase if you're in a market to get one? So let's go ahead and get started here real quick with the hardware. Let's do a quick size comparison. S10 definitely a little bit taller, but the iPhone is definitely a little bit thicker. It seems like you guys can see the button layout here. And an important thing with the hardware is that the S10 does have a headphone jack. The iPhone, of course, got rid of the headphone jack, a few iPhones ago. Both have stereo speakers, which we will get into. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the displays here. So with the S10, you do have the slightly bigger display here at 6.1 inches. It is a dynamic AMOLED at HDR10, 1440p or 2K display, 550 for the PPI. The iPhone 10 does have a Super Retina OLED display, HDR10 at 5.8 inches, so you can see it's slightly smaller, and then it's 1125 by 2436, or 1080p plus pretty much. 458 for the PPI. Both very nice displays. The S10's display is definitely a little bit more colorful, but the thing that pops out the most is that the S10 is just definitely a sharper display, with a higher PPI. And also, to me, it's just a better looking display because of the, punch hole versus Apple's, much bigger notch here. So I do really prefer the S10 display. Now, the good thing about the iPhone display for a lot of people is that it is a completely flat display. The S10 does have a slight curve to it, but again, I am a big fan of curved displays. I've never really suffered accidental touches, so it really varies on the person, but I definitely really like the S10 display. But they're both very good, very color accurate displays, very bright. So I really enjoy using both here, but definitely will go with the S10 there. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the software experience real quick. I'll bring up the Geekbench scores. So what's interesting about iPhones or the older iPhones is that they have a longer life cycle than older Android phones. So the S10 will be getting Android 12, but that'll be the last major update, and it'll get security patches. The iPhone 10 will get iOS 16, and honestly, if not 17. So iPhones do have a pretty crazy long cycle here. So let's go ahead and get into the specs real quick. So with the iPhone, we have the Apple A11 chip. It is again no SD card support, 64 gigs of internal storage, and 3 gigs of RAM. And then with the S10, the Snapdragon 855 and Adreno 640, micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage, and 6 gigs of RAM. So you can actually find the S10 a little bit cheaper than the iPhone 10. This is trending around $300 in the used refurbished marketplace. This is trending around $250. And as you can see, the S10 is going to be a bit more powerful in the multi-core, but not as powerful as the iPhone as far as the single core here. So let's go ahead and do some app comparison and see what we get here. Subway Surf. S10 slightly faster there. YouTube. Looks like iPhone got in there first. S10 I think a little bit faster, but almost a tie there pretty much. Again, so these devices seem to be more tied than anything. Seem to be pretty much on par with each other. Now there is a big difference when it comes to gaming performance, which we're going to see. iPhone got in there very quickly. I like the S10 kind of hicked up there. Temple Run. So a little bit of back and forth here. Now the iPhone kind of jumping out here. S10 definitely got in there a little bit faster. iPhone. So kind of bouncing back and forth here. Now let's go ahead and check out PUBG. Now, what you will notice with the Snapdragon 855 chip is that it's able to max out gaming, as far as like PUBG and stuff like that. And I believe the iPhone, it does a great job gaming, but it's not as good as the S10. S10 got in there pretty quickly. Alright, so you can see with the S10 here, extreme, 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 ultra HD. So you can pretty much play at the highest settings on this phone. iPhone, extreme, and then it drops down to ultra with no ultra HD. So it does a good job with gaming, just not as good as the S10 here. So if you are a gamer, you are gonna notice just better graphics, since you can play at HDR at extreme FPS, and on the iPhone you cannot. So it just feels a bit more smoother on the S10 as opposed to the iPhone. But it still, still plays great. So let's have stereo speakers. I got them at max volume. Let's go ahead and check out speaker quality. So the S10 is definitely louder than the iPhone speaker, but again, the iPhone to me has a deeper bass or a fuller bass. Yeah, so the S10 kind of focuses on the mids and highs here, while the iPhone is kind of feels like it's more bass focused. So I wouldn't say one is really that much better than the other. It really comes down to the kind of sound you like, but overall, if you're going for which speaker sounded the loudest, definitely the S10 is a little bit louder than the 10 there. Alright, so next let's talk about additional features and getting into the phone. So with the iPhone, you do have Face ID on here, which works fine, but there is no other method here, so there's no Touch ID anymore. Like I said, Apple really could bring that back in the power button and give us a variety. But yeah, Face ID works fine. I have zero issues. And as far as additional features on iPhone, you have NFC. Some of the big stuff to consider on iPhone is FaceTime is really huge. If your family members use a lot of iPhones, iMessage comes in, really good handy. Those are some big things that, Android kind of lacks a little bit. But with, Android or with the S10, you get a under the display fingerprint sensor. And you also get Face Unlock on here, and it works very fast. I have no issue. So you get two options, which is something that I really love. And then with the S10, Samsung throws in a ton of just awesome stuff in here, like the wireless power sharing. So if I wanted to charge the S10 on the back, or if I want to charge the 10 on the back of the S10, I could do that. You also have Samsung desktop support as well. So if I wanted to pretty much put this on a monitor or a TV, I could do that. And you also have a ton of little nifty stuff, secure folders, stuff like that. So you do have quite a bit, to work with as far as feature-wise. So now, as far as the camera setup goes, so there is a difference with the camera setup. So me personally, I would go with the S10 as far as cameras, mostly because I preferred how the shots look, but really because of the ultra-wide. So the iPhone 10 has a telephoto, but no ultra-wide. So with the S10, it's a 12 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel telephoto, and a 16 megapixel ultra wide. You get 4K video at 60, and then a 10 megapixel selfie cam at 60 frames that shoots in 4K as well. And basically the shots look great and everything, but I feel like one of the most important secondary cameras is an ultra wide. So that is, the camera that I use the most, and well, one of the cameras that I use the most. But images look great, great detail, dynamic range, very colorful photos here. And with the iPhone, You do get a dual camera setup, 12 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel telephoto, 4K at 24, 30, and 60, and then a 7 megapixel selfie that shoots in 1080p. I will say that I really prefer the iPhone's video. I still think the iPhones have some of the best and smoothest video, so I will say that much. But the iPhone, 10 shots still look great. I didn't have any issues with it, especially in good lighting. It looks great, good detail, good color, pretty color accurate actually. It's just lacking that ultra wide, which I think is kind of essential in, this late 2021 going into 2022 here. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the battery situation. So, believe it or not, the battery situation on the iPhone 10 is still pretty good. It's a 2,716 milliamp battery, 15 watt charging with wireless charging, and then on the S10 it's a 3,400 milliamp battery, 15 watt charging with wireless charging and reverse wireless charging. So both of these batteries kind of perform the same actually. And it really depends on your iPhone's battery health. That's something to pay attention to, but I can easily squeeze about 6 hours of screen on time out of both of these devices. So they're not devices that you're going to be running to the charger with. You can kind of leave the house and be confident that you're going to have battery when you get back, if you're a light user. So I've never really had, any rough battery experiences with these guys. So be sure to let me know what you guys think. Two very beautiful devices. I really love this gray color on the iPhone 10. I think it's aged really well. It's still a very sleek looking phone here. But which one do you guys prefer? Be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.